It's no secret anymore. The government is scamming us with fiat money. We have inflation. The US dollar is going down over time. But most people don't really know how to profit from all of this. And most people don't even know the degree of how bad the problem is. When we think about inflation, we think about the CPI, right? We think about 3 to 4 percentage points per year. And we don't really think it's a big problem because if you're currently a wage slave, you take your wage every year, you normally get an adjustment for that official inflation rate. So everything seems to be fine, right? Everything gets more expensive over time, but it doesn't really matter because you get the adjustment anyway. Where's the problem? The problem is that the official inflation rate is just masking the real problem. Money expands by much more than 3 to 4% per year. Money expands by roughly 7% per year over the last decades. So USM2 is growing by 7% per year, but you only get your wage increase by maybe 3 to 4%. So every year, when you keep your job, you stay at the same level, you're falling behind by roughly 3 percentage points per year. So that's bad, right? That's the first bad thing. But who's benefiting from all of this and how can we benefit from all of this, even if we are not, say, Warren Buffett? So there's two effects here. The second order effect is that people that have assets obviously make money from this, right? If you own a house and the house goes up by, say, 7% per year, that's great because obviously you make money. At least it looks like you're making money. The house is still the same house, but at least it went up in US dollars. So now you have more US dollars. And maybe with that US dollar increase, you earned even more than you did from your job. So you feel super, super happy, right? You suddenly have more purchasing power. At least it feels like this if you've got big enough of a house. So people that have houses, people that have stocks, etc., they obviously benefit from this because money is worth less and less over time. And the people that don't benefit from this, the people that get robbed of their money, are the people that sell labor, right? Because labor tends to grow much slower than USM2. There's also a differentiation here. If you're in the bottom half of earners, you make roughly 4.3% more per annum. That's how much your income grows over time. If you are in the top 5%, then it grows by roughly 5.4%. So you do have a bit more growth for the high earners versus the low earners, but all of the earners tend to grow their income slower than money tends to expand. So the second order effect, which is very important, is that people with investments make money. The first order effect is though, who is getting that money, right? When we say that all of our dollars are worth less because there's now more dollars around, who's actually getting those dollars? Is this the Fed chairman giving money to his friends? Obviously, that's not the case. That might have been the case 500 years ago when the king printed money, but it's not anymore. People did get smarter with this. The people that get the money are the ones that get newly created money. Now, how is money created? Money is created through borrowing, through creating debt. So if you buy a house with a mortgage, then all of that borrowed money is not money that comes from somebody else. It's newly created money by the bank. The bank doesn't have to own a lot of capital in order to blend it out, right? There's fractional reserve banking. The bank can only have 1/10, maybe 1/20th of the capital that they actually lend out. So whatever you're borrowing, right? Borrowing, in order to buy that house, you're actually not borrowing the money. The bank just created the money and said, here is some money and please pay this to us. And so there seems to be somewhat of a catch here, right? There's new money floating around, but there's also new debt. Having debt doesn't feel that great. Having new money, of course, feels great, but it seems to be somewhat of an equal thing, right? When you get more money, but you get the same kind of debt at the same time, how are you actually benefiting? You're benefiting by buying things with that debt that don't go down in value by 7% or more over time. So if you have something that doesn't go down by 7% over time, and you bought this with borrowed money, then you should be gaining from the system. So let's say you pay an interest rate of 3 to 4%, money expands by 7%. The delta, right? 7 minus 4, the 3 percentage points is what you gain if you buy something that doesn't go down in value. That's why houses tend to appreciate in fiat terms, simply because they don't go down as quickly. Now, there is, of course, a bit of risk involved in this, right? You want to make sure that you can always pay the loan. But if you're buying something that keeps pace with monetary expansion, you are fine. The S&P 500, for example, is growing at the same rate as USM2 is expanding. So when you can borrow below 7% per annum and you buy the S&P 500 and you let this run over the decades, you will gain purchasing power at the expense, of course, of the people that just sell their labor, the expense of the people that only hold fiat currencies.
Here are the videos that work on YouTube. XRP will be $12,000 guaranteed, or an AI explosion, top 3 cryptos to buy in November. A lot of pushing of greed, that's what gets the clicks. What doesn't get the click is a tutorial on how to make backtests, on how to build those sheets that in the end figure out what historically worked well in the past. The backtest that I often show here on this channel. I still very much enjoy producing this kind of content though. I also share these kinds of sheets, but I don't do it on YouTube. You also get direct access to me. Feel free to check it out. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com.
It's of course even better if you can buy something that tends to appreciate, right? Say, for example, tech stocks, they tend to make 12 or 13% per annum. That's even better. If you buy maybe even Bitcoin, that tends to grow even faster. If you can take out a loan and buy something that even appreciates, that's great. But most things don't appreciate. Even cars or watches don't appreciate, right? Some people say if you buy a rare exotic car, or if you buy a Rolex watch, that's actually appreciating over time. It's not appreciating. It's simply just depreciating at a lower rate compared to fiat. So it might go up by, say, 5% per year, right, in US dollar terms, but fiat is going down by 7%. So actually in real purchasing power, you're still losing 2 percentage points. So that's how the whole scam system, the whole fiat system works, right? You simply don't want to hold fiat, and you also want to get away from regular wage income as much as possible, and you want to own as many assets as possible, potentially also levered assets, right? Assets that you buy with debt. As long as the debt is somewhat cheap and you can serve the loan, everything is fine. You tend to then make better over time. So here's a pretty simple solution to all of this. Most people won't do it, but that's then up on you. You're then simply just a loser in the system. What you could do is you could go to the bank and you could take out a personal loan, right? You can take out personal loans usually up to 1 year worth of income. You take that entire year worth of income. You set the period for as long as possible so that you're 100% sure that you can pay back the loan. That's usually 6 years, at least where I'm from Hong Kong. That's how they do it, right? Maximum 1 year of a loan, maximum 6 years in duration. So then you're paying maybe 10% of your salary into that thing for the next 6 years. What do you do with all of that newly created money? You buy some Bitcoin with it. You buy some NASDAQ 100 ETFs from this. You also buy some long-term government bonds from this, and you also buy some gold from this. Now, the mixture of that is dependent on how high your risk tolerance is. But of course, if you want to become a winner from this, I'd recommend to have at least 1/3, maybe 40% in Bitcoin plus the NASDAQ 100. And then the rest as a diversifier. That kind of a portfolio, of course, will fluctuate and you will have your ups and downs. But over the 6 years, very likely you are going to make money from this. Over 6 years, money has inflated by a ton. Let me make the quick calculation over here. So it's 1.07 to the power of 6. That's 1.5. So your expected return after 6 years is 50%. Now, of course, you have to also deduct the interest rate expenses from this. So check out how high those expenses are. You only expect to make the delta, right, from your expenses relative to the expected return. So if you're borrowing 1 year worth of income and you expect to have 1.5 years worth of income after 6 years, you need to check how much you're actually paying. Say you're borrowing $1 million and you expect to have 1.5 million. How much are you actually going to pay? Are you going to pay 1.2 million, 1.3 million? The delta is what you actually earn from this. And of course, the more aggressive you get on this diversified portfolio, the more you should be expecting out of this. If you buy things that don't go down over time versus the US dollar, 50% after 6 years is the minimum. If you buy something that tends to appreciate versus the US dollar, like US tech stocks, you should have way more. And again, by setting something like this up, right, by paying 10% of your salary every year into something like this, a savings vehicle, so to speak, you should be able to offset what you're losing against the money printer. Because again, if you simply just keep your money in cash, if you simply just count on wage growth will not be as quick as monetary expansion, and over time you will not have a better life. The most straightforward approach, what most people are doing, is they simply take out a mortgage, which is also fine, but I believe it's actually more risky than what I just described. What I just described sounds super crazy, right? You take out a personal loan and buy all kinds of things with it, and do this over 6 years. But when you actually take out a mortgage, it is more risky because you take out way more loan, right? You have way more borrowed money, and you're also not diversifying in any way. As in, you're 100% at the mercy of the property market, and you're even 100% at the mercy of whatever specific unit you bought, right? Maybe your specific unit is going to underperform the rest of the market. Who knows? If you're not a professional property dealer, then maybe you don't have an edge in the market, and maybe you might not get the average return. Very much possible as well. The main takeaway in all of this is you cannot stand still. You have to own assets, and if owning assets requires taking out loans, that's fine too, as long as the loan is cheap enough and as long as you can serve the loan very safely. It's called capitalism because people with capital, they tend to accrue more and more power over time. You don't want to be in fiat. You don't want to be dependent on just selling your labor, because then you're not on the right trajectory, at least over the decade. Try to find a way to escape all of this. Try to get your hands on something that doesn't depreciate too much over time. And again, too much means 7% per year. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to also give this a like. Feel free to also join our Telegram channel. There's a Telegram link down below. Looking very much forward to chatting with you. Cheers.